Well, we are 1 minute late, but we're doing a special edition, so I don't think being 1 minute late will count against us on a special edition on a Monday afternoon.
I don't think it'll count either, but I will say I'm gonna have to go back and I'm gonna have to look at our shows and see how many times when we start the show when we go live we say well, because I think every show we've ever done we start out by saying well, here we are again.
Pretty much, I think we say nearly the exact same thing every time we start the show, and the first few minutes of banter is close to the same every time. It's kind of like our little routine. Like you
Yeah.
get up in the morning and you put on your socks and you go make a cup of coffee. It's kind of the morning routine.
Well, I remember in the beginning of our shows, we had a comment that there was a word that we got to where we were using frequently, and there was a penalty for us using that word. We may be going to have to enact that on a new word this time.
We may. Very interesting to note, back in I guess it was in the late 90s, I took some Dale Carnegie training, of all things. Make a long story short, I was an instructor teaching software and computer programs and things like that. And so one of the ways that we trained ourselves to not use the filler words, and all that, was to have a bell. And every time we said the word, ding. Well, fast forward a few years later to Breaking Bad, the series. If anybody has ever seen Breaking Bad, remember the old cartel guy in the nursing home that had the bell sitting in the chair, and he was ding, 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 as Heisenberg was sitting there. Anyway, it reminded me of that. It took me
Yeah,
straight
yeah.
back to that. So, we should have a bell every time we say one of our filler words. Ding.
Well, hey, look, it is hot as Hades out there, and it's looking like it's getting even hotter in Bossier City. I mean, I'm thinking that the Barksdale bubble is not going to save the meltdown that is occurring down in the confines of Bossier City.
No, it's not. And we're going to keep this show relatively short today. We're not even going to go through the intro. So let me point out that real quick. Hey, Pelican Training helps us out. Talk to the Ferrises. Acadiana Mortgage over there. Not only do they provide great mortgages, they do a great crawfish boil every now and then. And check out the Smarter Geek and Outdoor News stuff. There's our intro.
Yeah. So what exactly has brought us to the occasion? Well, I know I'm just talking, but what has brought us to the occasion to do a special show in the middle of a day during the middle of the week?
Apparently, there have been some shenanigans going on, one of my favorite buzzwords, and
Another one of
thus
them words.
ding, and thus the prompting us to do this special edition of a show. So there was some activity since the last Charter Commission meeting concerning the agenda, as some of you may have seen publicized on. I think Wes has sent out some stuff on Sobo Live, but we were kind of waiting to kind of see what the whole deal actually is. And thus, I got my crayons out and went through the crayon factory and did one of these great little posters, event posters, and it's showing the way we see this. It is the citizens of Bossier City fighting for term limits against the bureaucratic pigs.
Something tells me that we're going to get dinged as being well, I'm not even going to say it. I mean,
Hateful, all sorts of
you
things.
got
Yeah.
the Republican women using modern slang down there, so and nobody's got a problem with that. But then we're using government pigs. I'm just saying somebody's going to say, "Oh, y'all are calling the anti-term limits people pigs," and somebody will. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
not gonna go all the way there. I'm
look,
just gonna stop.
technically, I'm only calling the government bureaucrats who are against term limits, and you all know who you are. I'm only calling them pigs. And notice they're nice pink pigs that have been feeding, obviously, very well at the trough of the public tax dollars. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it would seem that all of the folks that are fighting this fight are in one way or another benefit off of the government dole. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, and it's a never-ending fight. So we won't belabor that point because we've talked about that ad nauseum on our show, and I think most of the people that are watching now, we've got about 30-something people watching, thanks to everybody that's tuning in, and all the people that will catch this on the replay. I mean, they all know the drill. We've got some, I think I termed it last show, it's like pulling ticks off of a dog, trying to get some of these 20-plus year politicians off of their high horse and their nest of dollars. But anyway, so what brings us to today is, like I said, there were some shenanigans apparently with the agenda. So maybe if you want to start leading that off, and then we'll kind of bounce back and forth and what we know at this point.
Yeah, so the Charter Commission, they had their most recent meeting, and at that most recent meeting, where we covered in depth that, you had one of the anti-term limits people not present, and then one of the other anti-term limits appointees who hasn't been to maybe one, at best two meetings during the whole process wasn't there as well, which enabled the pro term limits folks that were identified on the charter commission to have enough majority to vote in favor of term limits. Well, I said on our last show, and I still believe it to this day, I don't think it was by chance that those folks, what they knew the issues were going to be on the agenda to be voted on. It wasn't like it was a surprise. They were listed, and lo and behold, they voted to adopt term limits with retro. So, you know, at that last meeting, and we can show it in the video again. In fact, there's some notes at the end of it and discussion at the end of that meeting about the scheduling of the next meeting, which will be tomorrow on the 18th. There was discussion about the agenda. It was about that's the only date that they're going to be able to meet and or vote on any more of these issues to send to the council because of your timeline of having to send things to the bond commission. The city has a timeline which they have to get things to them. So that's where we're at. And I think you've got a piece of information, and then there's a little bit of information in the video from last week, and kind of the order. And we've had some other folks share some information with us of what has been transpiring. But the same way the pigs, as you say, feeding at the trough, sought to undermine the first term limits petition, well, they're at it again. And they're at undermining. So now they have to both undermine the Charter Commission, and they're going to have to undermine a third time the third petition, because that's going full steam ahead as well, too.
Yeah, so I think maybe the way we'll do this is let's start and let's kind of do it in a sequential time order. So this is last week's, if I remember correctly, last week's Charter Commission meeting, which was I think the 10th of June. And let's go back to I think it was a 3 hour, 14-minute mark, where Preston's talking about addressing the next meeting, which would be the 18th. And as you pointed out, that will be tomorrow. So let's listen to this again real quick.
Does that help clarify that? Now,
thank you.
the only thing left is we do have one more meeting set for the 18th, correct?
I'm not available on the
Okay.
18th.
All right.
We can't,
Juliana is not
we
either.
can't move forward.
Vacation
without
Bible School.
And I'm going to pause right there for a second. So I'm going to let this play on through for about a minute or so because there's another important part which you already alluded to about the bond commission. So here we go. And also notice that Princess just said that she has some vacation Bible school that would, determine whether she would be present at a meeting or not. So here we go.
So we.
Well,
that's-
the question
that's a no-go.
this will be back to, I'll have to ask, and I know Amanda's not here, but we were kind of restricted on our dates, aren't we, Richard, as to when we can meet here?
Yeah, it has to be the dates that the city council has a meeting, which would be, we have June the 18th. The reason today is available is because the NPC had a meeting in here, so they don't do the construction on those days.
Okay.
So.
Richard, I have one more question while we're looking at dates. What is the date that we've got to have all of this ready so that it can be on the December ballot?
From memory, I think the deadline to get on the bond commission is August the 17th. And so
All right, so I'm going to stop right there. So basically, they've got to get it in front of the bond commission by August the 17th or thereabouts. And that allows them to legally get this on the ballot. They have to have bond commission approval. Is that pretty much correct, Mr. Lowry?
That's right, but there's some little bits of hiccups in there. There's a lot of little things that have to happen ahead of time before it can like really get to the bond commission. For example, it has to go to the council, and then two, it has to go to the law firm to put it all into the legal mumbo jumbo that would be submitted to the bond commission, to be put on the ballot. So the thing that'll take the time is sending it to the law firm to kind of go through all this stuff and put it into the legal terminology that it needs to be. That's kind of so they've got a really jacked up timeline. And according to what Richard was saying, basically they only have one day that they can meet and delineate any further action, and that is tomorrow. That's the last day that they would have available to be able to meet and move forward on things.
Yeah, and be able to get it to the attorney's office, get all that done, and get it sent to the bond commission. Also taking into consideration, like he was saying, they're doing construction on City Hall, and so they can only have their meetings around city council meetings or other meetings in progress. So yeah, it's this whole rigmarole for the meetings. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead to the 3:25 mark. 3 hour, 25-minute mark, and let's listen to this real quick.
Question would be, if we do a workshop, the question is, we have about 20 items or less.
Right?
And is there any way we can, could sort of consolidate those before we meet on the 18th to make sure that we have a
That's what I'm
consensus?
proposing.
if I could make a
workshop.
suggestion, we had a motion on the table today on convicted felons, and we spent 18 minutes on a sidebar issue that had nothing to do with it.
Right.
If we would limit the people to 3 minutes, we would be through this stuff. We would be done. We'd have been done a month ago.
Now, I got to tell you, you can stop it right there. I think Richard is speaking words of wisdom. I mean, I think he's absolutely correct. I think the chair should enforce the rules, and he should limit the debate. Even among the members of the committee, he should enforce the rules as such. I think that's a great idea. I think Richard's on the mark. Words
Agree
matter.
with him. Yeah,
Words
words do
matter.
matter. He has said that multiple times. Words matter. Very good catch there, Mr. Lowry.
So I think Preston should heed his advice, and he should limit debate, and he should, as the chair, rule handedly.
All right, so I'm going to jump up to the 3 hour, 28-minute mark, which is almost the end of this particular meeting. And let's listen to a little dialogue about the putting the remaining items to be considered on the agenda. And this is as important as Richard Ray's words matter comments. So listen up. Here we go.
David,
Well, let's do the 9 o'clock meeting on the agenda, Ms. Martin, if we can go ahead and put those other items that we've got to cover, and we'll see if we can't get through every one of them until, if you have to leave, you have to leave, but we'll try to get a vote in on every one of those by noon.
Can I make one more comment before we
Yes,
leave?
Ms.
Even
All
though,
right. So I'm going to stop it right there because we don't, I think, really need to hear the little princess speak.
Now, the remaining items to which he is referring to is the already previously all agreed upon issues that they need to take a vote on that they have not taken a vote on yet. That's what he was directing her to put in an agenda. And
I didn't
or to
hear him
put-
mention. Well, I didn't hear him mention anything about anything else other than those remaining items. Did you?
That's right. And when they were wrapping up, that was what he said. Was the remaining basically he was saying what the agenda was going to be, the remaining items left that we needed to take a vote on. And in the previous discussion, Shane Cheatham and Jeter, they were all having a discussion, and Dala, we can go back and play the video. They were talking about that they needed to get a vote done, and they were even talking about starting at 9 a.m., then maybe
Right.
reconvening at 3 that afternoon because that's the only day to finish it all up. And there was even commentary of them saying, well, there's not that many things left. We should be able to get it all done this next meeting. And
Yeah.
Richard Ray is saying, Chairman, enforce the rules, limit debate so we can get through all these things. There's no reason we could have been done a month ago if you just quiet everybody down.
Right. All right. So I'm going to switch screens and we're going to show the I'm going to go ahead and I guess we'll do it this way. Let's hope that this makes sense. So I'm going to show you this is the meeting or the agenda that was published officially on the website and posted at the door to City Hall where they have to officially and legally have it posted. The website, honestly, it doesn't matter whether or not they put it on the website legally. That's more of a convenience thing. It's mentioned in the open meetings statutes, but it is not a requirement. But posting it on the door or somewhere in the area of the meeting is a legal requirement. So this is the one that was posted at, I think it was 8:51 this morning, if you look at the website. And I want you to take a look at this. What does it say right down here? I'm going to put my handy dandy pointer up there with the little finger. What is all this? Look, this is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Duke. Didn't they just cover all this in last week's meeting, especially the term limits?
Well, it does look like that is all of the issues that they covered in the last meeting, and I'm not sure why it's all listed there. Actually, I need to go back to the agenda of the previous meeting to see if in old business all of the items were listed in there. Generally, you approve the minutes, and that's the
That's
dispensation of the previous meeting, but you don't relist everything. But that says more than just that says more than just approving the minutes, doesn't it? What does it say? I can't read it.
Well, yeah, so they're talking about budget timing issues, threshold for ordinance to declare surplus, water rate flexibility, convicted felons. I know I heard them talking about convicted felons at the meeting we just showed, which was last week's meeting. The criminal penalty for council investigation, the delay time for passage of ordinances, the number of electors to protest an ordinance, vacancy of the mayor, and most importantly to us and to most people, term limits for the mayor and the council. So it looks to me like Ms. Morehart took it upon herself, or whoever did this agenda, to want to rediscuss some of these very same topics. And then I'm going to go to page 2, and then we see the new business, which are these remaining items that he was speaking about. Does that make sense to everybody? In other words, here's the scenario at this point. During the meeting, Preston directed, as the chairman, directed Ms. Morehart to set up an agenda to move forward with the remaining topics that they had to get through. There was plenty of discussion during that meeting about timing and all that sort of thing. And, they were kind of down to crunch time. Is that a pretty good summary?
It is, but it begs the question, well, why is this a subject of conversation? I mean, why not review those things? Why not talk about them? I mean, what problem is that?
Well, that might be a problem because it was already voted on and decided on.
Well, maybe you just haven't said what the problem is. Maybe what we understand and what's been conveyed to us, by some, is that the intent of the way this is worded in the review is to try to rescind or revote on the things that were voted on in the previous meeting.
Well,
Not
and
address.
specifically the term limits, that's the elephant in the room. And
Yeah.
remember, they had, I believe it was 2 members absent at that very meeting we were showing last last week's meeting, they had two of the members of the commission that were absent.
Yeah, so unhappy with the results of that meeting, and I would describe seething. They've put this out in an attempt to try to revisit, and that's what we're told. Sources say to revisit or revote or try to redo that happened. Now, I'm not sure on the precedent and the order how all that takes place exactly. I said, but I
Well,
think it's an uphill climb. But is that
what
actually the agenda that the chairman had called for or put out?
Well, let's discuss that for a few moments. And while I'm switching screens here for a second, we did have a comment from Jessica Langley Maddox that she's watching the show, but she has no volume. I want to make sure, if y'all let us know in the comments real quick, make sure our volume sounds good to most people. All right. So here's another agenda that I've got up on the screen, Mr. Lauer. And for those listening to the podcast, audio only version, look at this. Date of meeting, June 18th. That would be tomorrow. The time of the meeting, 9 a.m. That's when they all agreed to start. Here it is. This is the commission agenda. You've got a call to order, the invocation, the pledge, the approval of agenda, the approval of minutes, new business, which is review and discuss the remaining items, as you just heard Preston and the others discuss in last week's meeting, and then adjournment. I wonder where this agenda came from.
Okay,
Shall
so
I tell you?
yeah, please do. I'm dying to know.
Okay, so this is where the controversy comes in, because once the new agenda was posted, I realized that something wasn't quite right. So I reached out to Mr. Preston Friedley as the chairman of the Charter Commission, and I said, okay, walk me through the timeline, of what's happened. And because this agenda, you waving at me?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay, just making sure. Because this agenda was sent out to the Charter Commission members, as I understand it. This agenda that I'm showing on the screen right now with new business only. So here's what he told me, and I hope I've got my notes correct. And so if Mr. Preston watches this show, if I've got anything incorrect, he can reach out to me. But he basically Sandra Morhart sent her agenda around with the discussion of the old business. Preston sent a note around that agenda would not be used because of the old business that was on it. So Friday morning, Preston and Richard Ray reviewed the agenda in person. They agreed to Preston's agenda, which is on the screen now, which is what they discussed at last week's meeting. Richard Ray typed it and gave a copy to Preston. He suggested Preston scan it and send it out as the chairman. Richard Ray also said he would get it posted by 3 p.m. Friday afternoon, which is typically the time that they usually have agendas for the city council and all that posted anyway. As I understand it, there's been no communication from Ms. Morhart since then, and Preston did tell me he attempted to contact Richard Ray this morning because the agenda was not posted as first thing this morning. It didn't get posted till 8:51. But Richard Ray was in some meetings, and here's the kicker. Guess whose agenda was posted on the door and is now currently posted on the city's website for the Charter Commission? Not the agenda that was discussed in the meeting, not the agenda that the chairman of the committee of a commission and the attorney for the city typed up and printed out. No. It's the agenda from Miss Morhart. So let's just call it the Morhart agenda, where they intend on apparently discussing term limits and revisiting that.
So, Miss Morhart obviously is driving. Obviously, she's the chairman. Obviously, she's dictating. Even though the chairman, the elected chairman, directed what needed to be on the agenda, and maybe that was, but she took it upon herself to amend the agenda. and put out what she wanted to, even though a change in all of that had taken place with the city attorney. So this change in this action had to have the approval of the city attorney. So Richard Ray and the assistant city attorney Richard Ray and the wife of someone who financially benefits off of the city, I guess he still does. I think he still does the taxes. Are basically saying we're going to put our own agenda out and we're going to go with it. Now the
Well,
assistant
wait a
city
minute.
attorney, that's Mayor Tommy Chandler's guy, and Mayor
Hold
Tommy
on.
Chandler is supposed to be a supporter of term limits.
You
What
you
am I
missed one,
missing here?
just one slight little thing that you're missing, and you may
Okay.
have said it. Sandra Morehart was appointed by Councilman Don Williams. Bubba Don, what's up with your appointment? What kind of shenanigans are y'all trying to pull?
Well, I will make no bones about it, and I've said it before. I knew that they were going to try to sandbag this. In fact, I thought the term limits issue last meeting, and I said it, was the poison pill itself. But here they are again. They're going to try to bring this back up and try to have a revote on it. And I'm sorry if the chairman of the committee, said, "Hey, I'm going to put out my own agenda." He does, and then the city attorney and the secretary arbitrarily choose to just disregard the chairman's agenda. That
And look, we're not using the term agenda in the negative sense too. He literally said at that meeting what the agenda was going to be, and the agenda that both he and the city attorney together typed up and printed out was what was discussed in the public meeting. So it's not like he had some secretive agenda or anything like that. He was trying to get uh, snuck in there. It's literally what they discussed at the meeting.
Yeah, so obvious the intent of this is to, one, probably drag out the meeting so that nothing will be accomplished at the end of this charter commission meeting, and that's one way to defeat it, is to draw out the clock. I mean, drag it out and end it. I mean, if I was the chairman, I would try to, and I don't know their procedures here, but can the chairman just force the vote and say, okay, we're gonna send all this stuff that we've already voted on to the council, you know, or do we get through as many things as we can vote on, and then by the end of this meeting, this is our last meeting. I think if I'm the chairman, I might send it all, that everything we agreed on and voted on, go ahead and send it.
Right. Uh, Colonel Crockett brings up an interesting point. He says, perhaps this is what Morehart, Juliana, and Whitman gathered to discuss after the charter meeting.
Well, the city attorney putting out an agenda that was not the chairman's, and the secretary, I think she's the secretary, Ms. Morehart, putting out an agenda that was not approved by the chairman. I mean, they're operating on their own. They're not operating. Uh, I I think the chairman simply doesn't recognize. But here's the other thing: the chairman's agenda wasn't publicly put out there, right? It was.
That is correct. It was not.
So they have a defective meeting scheduled for the 18th, not in compliance. And as Richard Ray said, there's not another meeting date that they can come together. So essentially, any action that comes out of their meeting tomorrow is defective, in my opinion. And
Well,
can
yeah, I agree. And like Richard Ray said, words matter. And in this case, those are printed words and a whole lot of them. And what Richard Ray chose to put out there, it does matter, Richard Ray. You chose, because it wasn't just like a mistake, they accidentally put the wrong agenda on the website, because it was in two places. It was posted as per the legal requirement and posted on the website. So words do in fact matter, don't they, Richard Ray?
Well, that may have been his intent, was to blow the whole thing up. That may have been the reason that they did it, was to blow it up. But I would think there's another play for the chairman, and we're going to have to see how it pans out. But what everybody needs to know is that the good old boys or the government bureaucratic pigs, as you call it, are busy at work pulling out all the stops to try to kill term limits. And you will see it in full display tomorrow. And you know, we'll see. The term limits petition keeps going on. Uh, we collected 100 signatures just yesterday. There's a team of us that have been out. We had a successful day. People are enraged about what the city's actions are doing, and they're paying attention. They are paying attention.
Good. Well, we are going to keep the heat up. I know you guys have been doing a lot of walking and putting some miles on some shoes. Like you, I think, said last show, there has been some more help. I'm actually going to try to, get involved and help here in the upcoming next few days. And we'll go ahead and make the big push and get all this done. And we'll see how this meeting comes out tomorrow. I would encourage everybody, if at all possible. We know a lot of you are working. A lot of you won't see this show until, this evening or whenever is convenient for you. But we would like to encourage you, if it's at all possible, to show up to the Charter Commission meeting tomorrow afternoon. And if you can help with the term limits petition drive, reach out to us and let us know as well.
Yeah, and I would say, you should voice your displeasure about the tack that the Charter Commission is taking. I think maybe you can. Oh well, some of you aren't represented. I forgot about that. Your district's
Yeah,
not represented, so I guess you're crap out of luck. Maybe you should call your councilman and let them know. Oh, that's
yeah,
right. They a lot of them don't care. Maybe the mayor. Oh, and
yeah.
Richard Ray. Maybe you should let the mayor's office know, and that his assistant city attorney is trying to sabotage term limits from inside.
All right, so Cassie Casario Rogers says, will there be a show tonight? So there won't be one tonight because it's Monday night. Remember, we normally do it on Tuesday nights. We plan on having a show tomorrow night. I think the only thing that might get in the way is if the Charter Commission meeting spills into the evening or something, and Duke and I are actually decide to attend the evening portion of that meeting. So just keep an eye out. If we're going to do a show, which we most likely will tomorrow night, of course, we'll post the little calendar and event listing and figure out what we're going to talk about. And I will get busy at the Crayon Factory again to do these cute little posters.
Well, the show for me will be out on the streets of Bossier City collecting more uh, signatures from those brain dead zombies that are uneducated, according to Juliana Parks.
You know what would be cool is if we did a short show or something like that and actually had you come in from your phone while going and collecting a signature live on air. Let everybody see what it's about.
Oh, we could do that. Yeah, I could actually go to some doors, but they would accuse us of pre-arranging that. They would
Hey,
say, "Oh, y'all set that up."
yeah, well, as long as the people sign the petition, it's the same difference anyway.
Well, maybe I'd have to say, I guess we'd have to figure it out when I go to the door. I'd have to say, hey, do we know each other? To which they
Yeah,
would answer the question and say, have I talked to you ever before today?
right.
And
Yeah.
then, oh,
Well,
by
you
the way,
can.
we're live on social media. Would you mind doing a question and an interview type thing
Yeah,
and
we'll
see what
talk.
people say about term limits?
Let's discuss that further. I've got some ideas. We'll
We will
discuss that
see.
after the show. All right, folks. So this was kind of a special edition, not a very long show, because we just wanted to go ahead and get it out there that there were some shenanigans going on. We wanted to wait to do anything or say anything about it until the wrong agenda, was officially posted. And I reached out to Preston, got his official timeline, as chairman of the commission, on what transpired. And here you go. So we're just throwing it out there. Might be some shenanigans going on.
It's your government, citizens. Do what you
Yeah.
want with it.
All right, we're out of here. We appreciate everybody tuning in. I had over 50 people watching, so that's great for a Monday afternoon. We will plan on seeing y'all tomorrow evening, as usual, Tuesday, 7 o'clock.
Have a good one.